In the mountains of Albania, there are villages that seem forgotten by time. The kind of places that don't show up on maps, where the old ways are still respected and whispered stories pass through generations like folklore. I didn't grow up there, but my grandparents did, and every summer my family would travel back to their small village, Rezja, for a few weeks. It was a quiet place, nestled in the shadow of the mountains with stone houses and narrow, winding paths. But there was something else about Rezja that always felt off, something darker. I first heard the story of Lugina e Pershperitjev, or the Whispering Valley, from my grandmother when I was 12. I remember the way she looked at me, her wrinkled face unusually stern, warning me never to go near that place. The valley was a long, narrow stretch of land just beyond the village, hidden by thick forests and jagged cliffs. No one ever went there. The villagers treated it like it didn't exist, a cursed spot they preferred to forget. My cousins and I were always curious about the valley despite the warnings, or maybe because of them. I guess when you're young, the allure of forbidden places is too strong to ignore. That summer, we decided we'd finally go see it for ourselves. It was a hot, dry afternoon when we set out. The sun was high and the village was quiet, with most of the older folks taking their afternoon rest. We slipped out of the house unnoticed, carrying just a flashlight and some snacks, like it was going to be a fun little adventure. The path leading to the valley was overgrown and steep, winding through dense trees that seemed to press in on us the farther we went. After about an hour of walking, we reached the edge of the valley. It was different than I'd imagined. The valley was narrow, with steep cliffs on either side, and the grass was dry and brown, almost brittle. There were no birds, no insects, just an eerie stillness that hung in the air. But the thing that struck me the most was the sound, or rather, the lack of it. It was completely silent. Even the wind didn't seem to blow there. My cousins Tom and Eli were excited though. They started down the slope into the valley without hesitation, laughing and calling out to each other, their voices sounding unnaturally loud in the oppressive quiet. I hesitated, glancing around. Something about the place felt wrong, like the air was too thick, too heavy. "Come on," Eli shouted, waving me over. "Don't be such a chicken." Reluctantly, I followed. The ground beneath our feet was dry and cracked, and the deeper into the valley we went, the more isolated I felt. It was like we had entered a different world, far from the safety of the village. That's when we first heard it. A faint whispering. At first I thought it was the wind. But there was no wind. The sound seemed to come from all around us, soft and unintelligible, like voices carried on a breeze we couldn't feel. My skin prickled and I stopped in my tracks, straining to listen. The whispers were growing louder, clearer, but I still couldn't make out the words. It was like multiple people were speaking at once, overlapping, their voices low and urgent. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tom and Eli paused, exchanging uneasy glances. "It's probably just the echo or something," Tom said, though he didn't sound convinced. He was trying to sound brave, but I could see the unease in his eyes. We continued on, but the whispers didn't stop. In fact, they seemed to grow more persistent the deeper into the valley we went. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Ahead of us, standing in the middle of the valley, was a figure. It was a man, or at least it looked like one. He was tall and thin, his clothes old and tattered, like they hadn't been changed in years. His back was to us, his head slightly bowed as if listening to something. My heart pounded in my chest and I grabbed Eli's arm, stopping him in his tracks. "Look," I whispered. We all stared at the figure, frozen in place. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, as though they were trying to warn us of something. The man didn't move, didn't turn around. He just stood there, utterly still. "Who is that?" Eli asked, his voice shaking. "I don't know," I replied, taking a step back. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to leave, to get out of the valley as fast as possible. But before I could say anything, Tom, always the bravest, or the most foolish, called out. "Hey, you okay?" The man didn't respond. He didn't move. And then, slowly, he began to turn around. I wish I could say that I saw his face, but I didn't. Or at least not a human face. What turned to face us was wrong, twisted. It was like his skin was stretched too tight over his bones, his eyes too wide, too dark, like empty voids staring into us. And his mouth, it wasn't a mouth. It was just a black hole, gaping and unnatural. The whispers turned into a cacophony of voices, all screaming at once, and the air around us felt like it was vibrating with the sound. We ran. We bolted up the slope, back toward the village, our legs burning with the effort. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel something behind us, feel it getting closer. The whispers chased us, growing louder, more insistent, like they were trying to pull us back into the valley. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else, and I didn't stop running until we were back in the village. When we finally stopped, gasping for breath, we looked back, but the valley was empty. There was no sign of the man, or whatever he was. But the whispers, they stayed with us, faint, just on the edge of hearing, like they had followed us back. That night I couldn't sleep. The whispers were still there, growing louder in the darkness. I heard them in the walls, in the wind, even in my dreams. I woke up several times, covered in sweat, convinced that if I opened my eyes, I'd see that twisted face staring back at me. The next morning Eli was gone. We searched the entire village, but there was no sign of him. My family called the police, but the locals knew the truth. They whispered about the valley, about the curse. They said no one ever returned from Lugina e Pershperechev. I never told anyone about the man we saw, or the whispers that still haunt me to this day. But I know what happened to Eli. The valley took him, just like it had taken others before him. And I know it's only a matter of time before it comes for me too. Because the whispers haven't stopped. They're still here, growing louder every night.